today we have two speakers, so
it's a little dark, but I don't know if we have
data security, which is a very interesting topic. Just a few quick announcements. So we have now 4 more people that is interested in participating in the board. So we are actually now looking into assigning the different roles. So there's actually been that work. I think this presentation today, definitely you'll see some more collaboration from new faces. We have Nick and we have Wendy's being here for program director. So I think some of the other ones probably, I'm not sure if some of them are going to be online. We'll see. We're also going to be broadcasting this event online for the first time. We're trying new technology, and we'll see how that rolls as well. I think in the future, you've probably seen the members that have been for the last few meetings. We're also starting to run into capacity. So we're looking into maybe seeing if we can get people to just register and let us know a few days in advance who's going to attend, so that we can actually kind of balance the location and the room. But it seems like we are moving again back to monthly meetings, which is it's definitely the way that it used to be. And some of the members that have been with us for some time, that's still they've been seeing for a number of years now. And I think that's good. We are also engaging in some conversations with EMA International, so there's more to come. I think at this point in time, we're just basically finalizing some of the details. It's coming. We are already looking into how the engagement will happen, and we'll prepare something for the next meeting with all the members. So with that, unless there is any questions, with that, then I'll just pass it over to Wendy so that he can introduce our speakers and welcome everybody to our event.
Thank you. Well, welcome again to all of our members and our new guests and new board members. Thank you very much for being here in attendance with us. Just a tiny bit of background of how this session come together. I met Victoria, who's with HoneyTek Systems, at a cyber conference in November when they were finally announcing that now Canada has to it's mandatory to report any breaches. So we met at that conference. And then we met at Cyber Ladies conference, which is a new group that started up thanks to Helen Oakley from SAP. It's a group that's based out of Israel, and they have chapters all over the world, and they just launched, thanks to Helen at SAP, last month, right? And this group is now going to be meeting monthly to talk about women in cybersecurity. And Helen has a vast background in data and cybersecurity with SAP, so I'm sure we're going to be entertained as well as educated this evening, along with Nitish, who's the CEO of HoneyTek Systems, who's had 30 years experience in IT and a lot of cyber-related work. And I'm sure they can explain their backgrounds much better than I can. And I'll hand it over to them to give us our talk on upping our game in cybersecurity and data security. Thank you.
Okay, let me remove that silly thing. There you go.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Everybody got a chance to get a coffee and tea and everything?
So let's try that again. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Okay.
It's a little bit end of the day, but let's go with it. Technology. Here you go. A little bit about us. So Nitish, he's CEO of HoneyTek Systems, and he's a technologist, an interpreter, and a teacher.
Oh, yeah. Well, entrepreneur. I actually started at the age of 9.
Oh wow.
What I said to think about it today is Uberization of comic, because my parents wouldn't give me money to go watch the movie. It was one of those summer holidays, so I collected comics from everybody in the condo and started my own library. Sold their same comics back to them. Ponzi scheme, I don't know. But got away with it, but I got 3 tickets. So yes, as an entrepreneur. So, yeah. Teacher, because yes, I did start a school in 2008, teaching networking. And it's now 2 branches in Mississauga and Scarborough. Teaching, yes, absolutely. And,
I think you're certified open water diver.
yes.
You're is the spirit of entrepreneur.
No,
just
no.
go into open water.
Open waters,
That's
diving. Beautiful seas out there, nice and calm. The ocean just makes it very nice, right? So it was a dream to get it. Got it. Done there.
That's awesome. And I'm from SAP, and I worked there for the past 6 years or so, and worked for another insurance company before that. I'm organizing Cyber Ladies in Toronto chapter, just like Wendy said. Also, I am a teacher and volunteer for hackstudent.com, so that's where we educate in cybersecurity teenagers. And school, we work with York District School Board on different workshops for students. And yeah, I have kids, I'm a wife. In fact, today is my and my husband's 10 years anniversary. And I'm celebrating it. Yeah, and I'm a circus artist, so that's my hobby. So, when we talk about security, we think about maybe a safe, a system, something, right? And how secure can we get? Can we get a lot secure?
I guess you get as secure as you think you are. Beyond that is everybody else's guess. So let's see what we have.
I like this quote because, to be honest, to be secure, 100% secure, you need to go offline. You need to cover your system into concrete and make sure that nobody can ever access it, not even you. But we're not going to tell you that today, right? We know for our business, we have to be online, we have to have the business, and we have to keep going. So that's why we have 5 steps to up your security game.
So 5 steps to up your security game. When we're going to have this conversation today, when I and Helen first met, we said we're going to make it different. We're not going to be about just slides. Everybody runs to a presentation of slides. Plus, I really hate making slides, so I had to find a way to get away from this, right? So I said we're going to make this conversation about an actual conversation, right? So we're going to run through the presentation. We're going to have a conversation about it. We want to see how much and how involved you can get with it. So we're going to keep it very open. Start talking, start asking questions, and we'll answer what we can, and what we cannot answer, we'll take that away, right? Maybe for the next time. So
yeah,
5 steps of security.
So up your security game, and it's very interactive. So just stop us, ask a question, right? Say something, comment, even if it's not a question, it's a comment. Yeah.
So where do you think 5 steps start from, Helen?
Well, I think it starts with people. People.
People? Really?
We all have people here.
Oh, people are true, but think about it. Like you go to these presentations, and I've been to as many as you may have been, and wouldn't it be, I'm an infrastructure guy, so I'm saying, wouldn't you actually start securing using your infrastructure? Like, wouldn't that be a part of conversation? Because when you told me that you're going to go with people, like I said, you know what, I get her point. I totally understand where Helen's coming from when she says the first step is people. Right? Well, yeah, I get your point, but I want you to say something, explain to them why people, and then I want to get your ideas if we are in the right direction.
Say something?
I imagine it's people because the weakest link in any security system is the people themselves.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I said. Did you steal my? Did you steal my pitch?
Maybe as a presentation before.
No.
All right, so people.
People. So when we talk about people, we talk about security experts on a team, right? And that's mostly who we talk about when we talk about security. But we want to take it a little bit further, right? We want to take it to management. What about stakeholders, your customers and users? What about the rest of organization? Yeah. So it's more than just people who are involved in security, head to toes or toes to head.
Right. And I think it makes sense, right? Because being an entrepreneur, I also think about people. You always want to hire people who go with your mindset, who understand what your visions are, who understand what your goals are. Because if the people don't match, I don't think you have the right people in that organization, right? So.
Yes,
Right.
after all, people are running organization,
Exactly.
not systems. So to that point, we have a few things that we wanted to bring up in terms of people. So what we recommend is build a security team. So with the people we identify, and it's more for the management probably, yes, security management, CSO, to see where are the skill gaps and where do we have weaknesses in our team, because there's no single person who knows everything.
Everything. And then one more thing that comes to mind is, especially being from infrastructure and security, everybody looks at us as a cost center. You know, security, cost center. And I think that problem is not just with the CISOs at the C-level. The problem is that we have never been able to communicate ourselves to say that, hey, are we really a cost center, or do we help the business in some way? So I see that point of yours.
Exactly. So as we focus on creating and developing our teams, we also want to focus on the talent acquisition, right, and the relationship. So why we say talent, not the background, because hey, if you're older than 30, you don't have security certification, right? Everybody came from wherever the backgrounds and learned security. So the important thing is to have someone who is willing to learn, to unlearn what they've learned in the past, because everything is changes, and learn again. So this approach and this attitude is what we're looking for, especially in our security team.
One very key word that she used here. Everybody says, I want you to learn. But the most important key word she said is unlearn. Unlearn what you learned before and learn new things, because things are changing. The landscape is moving, right? And you have to have that ability to forget what was past. It's okay, it's gone. What is the new thing, right? What was that? Netflix didn't kill blockbusters. Technology did, right?
Exactly. Yes.
It was online shopping that killed those small shops. It was not Home Depots and the big block stores, right? You got to get with the action, right? So I love that phrase that you use there.
Then, as we have our teams, also we want to ingrain accountability. It's not just telling people that now you have to do this, and they just never mind why you have to do it. It's actually to convince them that they believe in why they have to do it, right? They believe for their accountability.
Right.
They are responsible in this link of all security chain events, right? And develop security culture in the organization. And by that, we're saying it's not only a single event of security once a year or a single training once a year. It's a consistent, addressing consistently security aspect. You're once a month, maybe security tip of the best practices or so on.
But as a mother and as a father, I can understand. We don't tell our kids, don't go with strangers who offer candy just once a year on their birthday, right? Like as they're growing up, we kind of enforce that. So why are we different in the organization? Why can't security be a conversation in every town hall? Even if it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could just be one slide. Guys, don't click on that email, right?
Yeah.
Right? That bride is not coming from Russia, right? Do not click on her, right? So at least say that once. Like, just be open and talk about it at least for once, right? So I agree with that point too, yeah.
Exactly, because we also we lock in our doors and we lock in our closing our blinds as our daily routine, right? We don't lock it once a year. I hope everybody locks the door, right? There are still people who don't, but so that's why also the security is part of daily routine. Now the next point, understanding needs of business stakeholders. Nitish.
Oh yeah, well, think about it. As a security person, the first thing that I learned when I was doing my work was the word no. It comes so easy. Somebody asks you something, no. It's a security threat. That's it. It's a simple word. But what you also learn is you cannot say no. You have to be a business driver, right? Security is here to enable the business to do business in a secure fashion, not to say no, right? So understand the business. You need people who are willing to understand the business, people who are willing to take part in the stakes of the business, right? So
Exactly.
it is very, very important that when you hire your people, you hire the right people who are there with your vision and your goals.
When you train your people, you also train them not as just the experts, but as leaders, right? As drivers in the business. Because we want, as a security team or as your security team, we want to help your business to exist, to be successful, not to stop from being successful,
Exactly.
right? And to do that, we need to understand the vision, the goals. Where is the business going? What are we doing? What pain points are we trying to address with our team?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and I think you got it right on there, Helen.
Identify business assets is another point as you're talking to all your stakeholders within your organization. It's important to understand what you're protecting, right?
Right.
And everybody runs different type of businesses. We have more or less common assets, but then there are specific assets.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, if you're running a retail store, then I think credit card information of clients and all can be really business, how can I say, damaging or reputation-wise versus a bank, whereas something else versus you're running another business. So understanding what you're trying to protect, right? Without understanding what your crown jewels are, I don't know even how you can create a security policy on it.
Or a hospital, right?
Right.
When a hospital couldn't fail to protect their database, they didn't do backup, and then when WannaCry, the ransomware, hit them, it was a private hospital in the U.S. that had all the celebrities going there with all their data, and they had to pay a lot of money. That was their business decision to do that, right? You don't have to, but it was their business decision to do that. However, if you go back to identifying assets, they failed to identify assets and protect it.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think there's so many examples that we can use as use cases where businesses have gone down just because they've not been able to identify what were their assets, what were their crown jewels, right? It is a simple thing, but many organizations move away from it because it's just bureaucracy. Nobody wants to step on anybody's toes.
Yeah. Understand customers and clients and users.
Yeah.
It's equally important because as a business driver, okay, your security team is working on your internal processes, but we need to understand where it ends and how we can help, how we can protect and secure those and help our customers because we want to make sure that our business security is driving the business, that you have benefits over your competitors, that you have secure business. Maybe it's a secure certification of your systems, right? Or anything else, but security as a business driver is a key word.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I'm saying no is a very easy answer to give, but security becoming a business driver, driving the business, helping the business to reach where it needs to be in this day and age of IT is what I think we need to understand as security professionals.
Yeah. And last but not least, invest in education.
This is the reason why we have today's session, right, Wendy?
Exactly.
Yes, we are investing in education. It can be our financial investment, our time investment, and so on.
Yeah, and there was a question, right? It was a joke. I think many people may have that. It was a CEO went to a CIO and said, we're spending all this money in training people. What if these guys leave? Right? We train them and then they go to competitors. And the CIO looked at the CEO and said, yes, we don't train them and they don't leave. What do you have? The question is, yeah, even I as an entrepreneur, I have professional services, I always come across that question. It is a very valid question. Do I spend money in training? What if my guys leave? But if I don't, what do I have? Right? So, education.
And especially in security and evolving technology in general, but security is ever-changing field. And without education, we're just going to be always behind. We're already behind.
Yeah.
Hackers and criminals, they are a step ahead of us. And we're trying to catch up and prevent, right? So if you don't continuously educate ourselves and our organization, we're just going to be so behind, we'll fail.
Yeah.
And not to forget the personal online handling too. You know how many companies are actually forgetting about that? We have devices, and our business, professional life, and a personal life intercept so much. I'm using my work phone as my personal phone, right? It's just my convenience. It's my convenience to answer email very late at night when there is a fire happening or something, or urgency. But also it's my convenience to maybe communicate with my husband during my working hours. So it's my convenience. But what does it mean for the company? If personnel is not trained and doesn't understand how it can impact the organization, if they are not handling their personal security well, how can it impact? It can leak data through different applications that they use on their phone or devices, how they communicate even between colleagues.
Yeah. You know, when we were discussing the presentation, and Helen pointed this out, personal online handling. It is so true. Imagine we are giving you customer data, we are giving you organization crown jewels on your device. Have I really taught you how important it is? Have I communicated to you how important it is that you do not share this with anyone? Or are you just using applications within your devices that can actually leak out online organization data? How do you protect those data, right? Like, what thought have you given to that? Over the shoulder surfing in the elevators, when you're talking, you're going for a dinner, you're talking to your husband, you're talking about a merger and acquisition that you're working on. Like, how many people are overhearing this? What does that cost to the company after all the millions you have spent securing it? So I was impressed that that thought was there, even if I had not given a thought about it, to put it in this. But this was amazing. Yes.
Thank you. And to that point also, and I've lost my thought.
Can I ask a question while
Yes.
you regain that thought? On the training of staff and then losing them, is there any time that you would consider negotiating, like we're going to give you this much education and invest in you to this degree, but what we want in return is a commitment for so many. Can you do that legally? And
Yeah.
it doesn't work?
I don't know about legal.
I've been
Like,
through.
I mean, I'm not sure.
I don't think we're studying.
Yeah, it doesn't work at all.
It doesn't work?
Yeah, because the thing is, I think in the company you need to create a culture where they do not want to leave you, rather than actually forcing them. And especially in my case, I mean, I personally, if there is an enforcement like that, I will try to break it as much as possible.
You resent, there's
Yes,
resentment,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And I've been an employee and I've been an employer, and I resent it too. Because if somebody wants to leave, I can ask him and convince him to stay over. But usually if they want to leave, then it's better they leave.
Yes.
I worked for a startup company that had clauses in their contracts where you could not work for a competitor for the next 6 months. So
Right.
that didn't really work, mainly because you weren't possessing documents, you possessed know-how. And so trying to enforce telling somebody that they can't get a job in 6 months, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
they
it
had
works in the
clauses.
legal system also.
Yeah.
That you cannot work for a competitor, I don't know. But that's not me, I'm not legal, so.
Another issue I could see with the whole, we're going to give you so much knowledge, but you have to give us so much time, is it can also lead to like champing at the bit kind of thing. Like, it shows that you aren't really trusting them as well. Like, we'll only trust you so far, but after that, we're going to need you to write legally binding stuff to go any further. And it just seems like, why would you want to work for a company that's outright saying, we think you're going to leave us as soon as we give you more info?
I can give an example. As working for SAP in a huge company, we do invest a lot in education, a lot. And the best part is that people who take that education, they are encouraged to share furthermore, right? So they are encouraged to step up and share the education, to show off and be part of something. And that encouragement and believing in those people works so much better, because when someone sees a purpose, when someone sees that they can follow and invest more, they are happy to give away. Because at the end, whether we work for this company or a competitor, our paycheck is more or less similar, right? It's not a big difference perhaps, but it's more important for a lot of professionals to be recognized and to be to have purpose and do something important that makes sense.
Right. And that's the last thing on that topic. Did you get back what you were thinking about?
Yeah. No.
So giving her 2 more minutes. When we invest in people, it's not. It's also telling the people that we trust in you. We want you to get this education because we believe in you, because we believe you're part of our company. From an entrepreneur, that is my view. When I train my engineers are trained not because it's mandatory, not because, but those engineers are the ones that we trust and we want them to come with us, right? But if they decide to leave, like the gentleman there said, you know what, better to leave. That's okay.
Yeah.
I think back to the point where you are actually choosing your team, sometimes it's not so much about the skills, but about the values. I think that's the part that as you mature more, you realize that, for example, integrity is a value that, because things that they don't know, it can be actually covered in by training. But if there is no integrity, there is no values in a person, it's very hard to actually overcome those values.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
It's the fit in a team, it's the fit in an organization, and personal values that are important, because we all can learn, we all can train, and that part can be definitely handled.
Okay. So what's next? That's step one.
Step two.
People and process.
Processes.
Oh.
Who doesn't like processes? I like processes.
Well, processes, given, let me tell you frankly, like being an engineer and hands-on, you don't appreciate processes till you really get into the core work. That when you start doing core work for businesses, that it really matters, because without clear processes, without clear policies, we as security engineers will never be able to implement security. What happens, what we have seen happens in the field, is you hire a security engineer, the guy goes in and configures the way he believes is the best. Why? Because nobody told him that there is a company policy, these are the policies, these are the processes, this is what you need to follow. Everybody goes there, does something. The next engineer who comes in, he looks at it, he's like, oh, I don't like this. Why? Because I don't feel comfortable with this, I'm going to change it to something else. Processes. So you got the people, so you need the processes to drive the people to make the right decisions.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Got it.
I'm getting it a little bit.
So processes, there are many different processes, and we're going to talk about processes related to security, right? So how is security awareness handled in organization? We roughly touched it during the people discussion topic. Then security incidents. Do you know that based on latest statistics in 2018, there is 70% of, like, especially smaller companies, but bigger too, who don't have incident management. And if I ask you about incident management.
Yeah, well, so there's a...
Don't get too stressed about it.
It's a true story, because the CIO told me, hey, he said, Nitish, I'm tired of spending money on security, and I'm sure you guys hear about this. Every day there's something new. He's like, fine, we'll do all these projects. If there is one thing, you as my friend, you're my friend also, right? So you as a friend, if there's one thing I should spend money on, what is it? And I said, incident response. Because the day you become a targeted attack, nobody can save you. There's one thing is incident response, right? You better have your act right, because I really don't want to see you fired as a CIO, right? Because you're a friend, and plus I do get business, so So incident response and security incidents, right? It is unbelievable. Just one, I know this one that came to me. Security incident. How people view this in our organizations it blows my mind off sometimes, right? So I was given a report to read about a security, whatever they did, life cycle review, right?
Yeah.
And the person there said, well, we are way better than I thought we are. And I said, well, what makes you think that? He's like, we just have one bot. I'm like, well, you don't really need two. You just need one to compromise you. You know what I mean? Like, you have one bot sitting in your network. He's like, but other companies have seen 10, 15, 20. I'm like, I don't care, but you need only one. You don't need more than one. Like, it is amazing how people look at security incident. No, one bot is okay, nothing much.
Yeah, the priority and severity of security incidents completely different from functional incidents, right? And that's why you may know that some companies do, and like especially bigger companies, like security day patch, you know, every month or every 2 weeks they send out or your devices, right? Their updates, security patch. So it's very different from, it may be not visible to you at all, but if there is a security incident, it can be really impactful in terms of your reputation, your legal responsibilities, and your financial liability. The next one is disaster. You know, like I have this funny image there about dinosaurs, and in reality, right? Who thinks about that somebody will die tomorrow? Like, I don't want to think about this, right? I don't want to think about disaster. Like tomorrow, the Yellowstone will blow up. But in reality, it's only a matter of when, not if, and something happens. And we hear it all the time, right? So that comes security incidents, and disaster is like sister, right? If something goes down, your system goes down. You cannot leave it until the long weekend is over, right? To close your business, everybody go home, our system is down, sorry guys. You need to actually have a disaster plan that will bring your system up no matter what happens.
I agree. Disaster is something that I don't think many people really take it that seriously. Tabletop exercises are done everywhere. But seriously, if you really look into it and say, how many companies are doing a thorough tabletop exercise? Like proper DRR, like show me the DRR. Nobody. Yeah. Because everybody wants to go home that long weekend. Right, and it's always on the long weekend, and you know, let's just run 3 systems and fine, let's just move on. And I think there's one point that comes to it because I see it there, and I think that is one of the reasons why people don't really do good tabletop exercises for disaster.
Yeah, and also the other types of processes, data classification, secure operations and development, so on. And the last one. Do we ever discuss ROI metrics for security? Why?
Yeah, even for processes in itself, right?
Yeah.
Like this is where I'm saying you do tabletop exercises, you do all this, but where is your metrics? How do you know that this year you're better than last year? I think that is why people just push it under the carpet and say, I hope this doesn't happen on my watch, and then move on.
And back to our people topic, right? When we talk with stakeholders and when security is perceived as a cost center, right? You need to show the proof of how you pay off your investment, right? We always ask for money. We need more money for training, more money for systems, this and that. But actually, how are you collecting what you've been spending and improving over the years?
So I think from a technology perspective.
But how? What are you measuring?
You measure.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. But there you go.
Yeah. So you collect data and evidences based on what are you doing, right? And I'm talking about here. You demonstrate where investments have been done and how you prove that you improve. For example, let's say very explicit example, very easy to bring up. You as a company invest into security certification, right? And there are a few on the market that have certifying the system. Now you have invested, you have a bunch of teams working, and auditors spending like thousands of dollars on hours or looking at your systems. At the end, you receive the certification. Nice, great. Now what? Yeah. So actually, the very vivid show off how it was paying off is that now your system is being more secure, and you as a business are more secure. And comparing to your competitors, if somebody will be looking at your system with certification versus somebody else, they probably will go with more secure because that's important.
Yeah, just like your ISO certifications tell you something. Right? In technology side, we also have systems that give you KPIs like a security rating, just like a credit rating kind of a system. They give your company a security rating, if I may, right? So that is good because you could be at a certain level, spend a lot of money, and then your security rating comes up, and now you have something to measure with your peers, your other competitors or whatever. You bring so KPIs are very key, ROIs are very key. So.
And now the points that we've been discussing, so we suggest you to document and test your processes and procedures, yeah, so everything that you document. And actually go and revise and update on a regular basis because everything changes,
Yes.
right? So security incident response plan, disaster recovery plan, then prioritization of your assets, right? So what you need to protect first of all. So safety critical, right? Mission critical and business critical assets will be prioritized differently. And what is more important, the most important asset of everyone?
Data. No?
You are shocking me. You're talking about, I put people in the first.
Oh,
Humans, of course, humans, right? Because whatever it comes to what, the safety of humans is always number one.
Develop is great, right? But this is why we say, if there is no processes, which basically processes, policies, whatever, if you're not developing this, if you're not putting in there that you need to do these tabletop exercises, you should. Those are the key words, right? That has to be in those policies. It says you should. It's not a good to have. You should. The word should has to be there in those policies. Develop a recovery plan. Do it every 12 months. And then that needs to be audited. That did the organization do it? And some people be held responsible if it didn't happen.
Is even the word should too much of an optional thing? Shouldn't it just be
must. There you go.
every month, this
Must.
is the thing that has to be
Sorry,
done?
it's actually must, not should.
There we go.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Don't hold me.
You give
English.
someone an inch, they take
I
a
really say
mile.
this well in Hindi, but but must is the key word. Yes, you're right. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Document secure processes, procedure for development, operations, and IT. Right. So you have your team of people. They need to know what you do. And we covered that.
Yeah.
And the last, regular mandatory security awareness training, right? Across organization, not just experts, because like we said, we want to make sure that we have this culture and everybody understands what does it mean to be a secure organization, what does it mean to operate securely.
Yeah. I agree
Well,
with
it's
it.
also the vulnerability of the people to social engineering, so their own actions, which can put the company at risk.
Right.
Exactly, yes.
And today, 95% of your breaches are through social engineering, right? It's not coming from the perimeter, it's coming from social engineering. Even this security awareness training, because I know I read Victoria's presentation beforehand for tomorrow, and I saw there was a keyword that I'm going to steal, sorry, but plagiarizing here. But the training should not be standard across the organization. Depending on your position, your job roles, the training has to change, right? The CEO will be targeted differently than an IT admin, right? The same attacks that happen for the CEO will never work for the IT admins. But what attacks work for the IT admins may never work for the CEO. So the training has to be specific. Everybody just gives out a random questionnaire. Everybody just chit. No, then it's pointless, right? The training has to be again. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Victoria's point as well, the efficient training, right? So, but that's a topic for another conversation. So a lot of trainings are not so efficient. So we need to make sure that they are also well spent. So number 3.
Oh, it's just too much steps. Everybody's still awake, right? Yeah.
Some coffee?
There's a quiz after this. All right.
Systems and defenses.
Oh.
Now we are in your area.
Thank God, they put something at least for us guys, right? We're not usually in the basement like the IT infrastructure.
Is that
so-
your desk, by the way?
System, it actually is. I got into the elevator one day and it was like 3 o'clock in the night and the cleaning ladies were already in the office, right? And she looks at me and she's like, "You're from 7th floor." I'm like, "Yeah." "I know where you sit." And I'm like, "What? You have the dirtiest desk." I'm like, "I work late." But interesting topic. Go ahead. You want
Yeah.
to say something first? Say.
Yeah, I wanted to say, in fact, that picture, when I run physical security sessions for teenagers, I have this picture and I ask them, what's wrong with that picture? What do you think? And they start picking up heads and like, no. And like, aside of what your mother tells you to clean up, right? What's wrong with it? What can happen? So, and they're actually very good, very smart kids. I'm so proud to be raising such a smart generation of kids. They start telling, oh, computer is not locked, or the paper there, and you know, like, and device is there, and the office is open. I was like, good one, right? And in fact, if you know, like current structures of our offices, who gets office?
Yeah.
Probably CEO or somebody who's sitting really high, who has so much access. So back to your training, right?
Yeah.
Has to be trained.
It is. How many companies, maybe you do, but how many companies you know who still follow clean desk policy? Because we're going to talk about physical security, right? Physical security is the first thing that comes into mind is badge, access control. That's great. You know, you have badge, you have biometrics. Everybody's got biometrics.
But still like tailgating, right?
Tailgating, right? But when you talk about physical security, think a little way back. Even today, dumpster diving is the way to get information, right? And it is hard to believe that this was 20 years ago, you know, when Kevin Matnick, you know, robbed the bank and, you know, made diamonds and became a hacker. But even today, dumpster diving is one of why? Why have we not learned clean desk policies, destroy information before you dump it somewhere? Why? Because the processes, policies are not clearly defined to the people. We're not doing that audit, right? So physical security, clean desk policy. That's why that word was there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit. Here is a great example of gaps that, you know, we put a gate, we have a gap, and now let's talk a little bit about infrastructure. So we covered physical security, perimeter and access, right? Securing server, control, operating room, hardware assets like your laptops, devices,
Yeah.
and all those things.
It's not from a hardware asset. It's just not about security questioning what we are doing with our hard drives.
Yeah.
I want you to question what we are doing with the SaaS. If you are using SaaS, what is that vendor doing? What is their policy of destroying hardware? Because now your information is on their hard drive, right? What is the encryption method used? Ask them. Get those certifications from them. At least you will secure yourself. Am I too loud? I get passionate when it comes to that.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
great.
watching you on live. I'm watching you live.
All right.
That's great.
So you know what? So those are the questions I want people to ask: is what do you do with that, right? Like, you know, so.
Yeah. Suspicious devices. That's you know, when
Rubber duckies.
somebody picks up a USB and inserts it into a laptop, or somebody comes up to a receptionist or secretary of a CEO and says, hey, can you print something for me please quickly?
I have a meeting with your CEO and you just print something for me.
Yeah,
right?
great. Now all the emails are there and the passwords and everything. But also the server rooms, right? Are your IT specialists trained to check for any suspicious devices in server rooms? Because you never know. Even internals, in fact, a lot of breaches happen internally with internal access. So you will not recognize that a device is plugged in into your server and now everything is leaking.
Absolutely. So I think physical security needs to be thought a little bit more seriously than we just think about it from a fob or a physical camera. We need to think about it from a, you know, physical pieces of information, even though it does not reside anymore in our data center. But where is the data residing? Come to the same question again and again. What are you trying to secure? Data. Find out where it is, secure it, right? So that part is great. IT infrastructure. This is my part, right?
Your part.
All right.
Go for it.
So firewall servers. You know, I keep bringing this up. Firewalls. Great. It gives us money. We configure that. That's bread and butter. But few years ago, we engineers actually sat together, and quite a few people around here, and said, what are we doing wrong? Right? We are making our firewalls. We are buying the biggest, baddest firewall, like big ones, right? You are the bank, you can spend $1 million buy the baddest firewall, great. But you're still getting breached, right? The thing is, there has to be a shift in our thinking. We want to stop thinking that we are going to be breached. Because up till now we were in a defensive mode. Stop thinking that we are going to be breached. The perimeter is as secure as it gets. This is not 1980s, right? The firewalls are great. Start with the thinking that we are already breached. When you start thinking that you're already breached, the tools that you buy will change everything. Because now, how do you know you're breached? Visibility, right? Focus on detection instead of defense. Instead of being defensive, I'm not saying don't be defensive. I'm saying spend some money in detection, right? So firewalls. The biggest problem with firewalls, I've done multiple pen tests. Biggest problem with firewall is configuration issues. The firewalls don't fail. It's the people fail. Why do the people fail? Because there's no policy. They did not say you should never have this. You should not have any rule. Nobody said that, right? So processes, people, processes, those things are key, right? So we have to keep on revisiting, just like Helen said. It's not that you make it once and that's good for life. You have to revisit it, you got to audit it, you got to keep doing it. Firewalls don't fail, configuration, people fail firewalls. Servers, network. Network is the least looked at. Nobody gives a crap about the network. Network is like the road you go on every day. You get up in the morning, you sit in your car and you drive. You don't care you're on what road, like you're just driving because that's you're used to driving. When do you start complaining about the network? When there's congestions, when you hit potholes, when there's all that other stuff, they're like, I hate gardeners. Network is like that. Network is the road on which all your data travels. Know your network. Because network is where the data will take a path. If you don't know your network, so
check a GPS before
yes,
you go.
because if you don't know which path the data is going to take, you are never going to secure it. You will never put the right controls in place. You will be putting a firewall here, but the guy is going from that way. Right? You need to know your network. You need to know how it goes. Diagrams, whatever. Right? Technology is in place. So network, I feel, is the most underestimated thing that I see in our field today.
Yeah. And I remember you were telling me also you can like build levels of like you start with a little bit and then you build more as a roadmap as your
right.
network, the whole infrastructure.
Right. So from a security perspective,
yeah.
you're right. You know, as an organization, if I'm the CIO, I would love to see a roadmap, because how do I spend my money today, right? And you know, we talk about breaches and we talk about all this in infrastructure. Visibility is key, but what is the second most important is silos. Every technology that we are implementing today is in silos. Now, the key part is why is, I can just keep talking about it, but well, I'm going to stop here in a few minutes, is think about it. The protocols that we are using today comes from 1970s and 77s. These protocols were meant to be sharing. They're DARPA-based IP protocols, right? They were never meant to be secure, right? So now we have implemented all these silos to protect us against those protocols. They don't talk to each other, so we need them to be converging, right? We need to buy tools that are open API that communicate well with each other and that can transfer information, right? So start small, but at least work towards a roadmap. Have a roadmap. Understand that roadmap. I think people know.
So I have a question. So you're talking about like integration and consolidation, essentially,
Exactly.
right? So there's many tools that every company has in their ecosystem, security ecosystem. So do you recommend then that people continue purchasing their tools from a specific vendor, or should they be getting best of breed?
No, they can buy whatever makes sense. Yeah, they can buy whatever makes sense to them, but buy tools that are ready to play with each other. You know what I mean? Like, don't buy tools. Exactly. Hey, you bought my firewall, so you got to buy my IDS, IPS. No, I don't. Right? You need to be able to play with each other. If your tools are not ready to play, no, I don't want you. Because in the end, you need to integrate with every aspect of the network and give you that functionality, right?
So it's up to your people then, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So and also very important is identity and access management. that needs to be overlooked as well. Make sure that John is John and Mary is Mary, that John is not Mary, so all your employees are identified as true employee, right? And the next one is privileges as per role definition in organizational structure. And the most important here is make sure that offboarding process is as strong as onboarding, because we often have such a seamless onboarding process, but when it comes to offboarding, we often forget. And when we're talking about offboarding, we're not only talking about employee leaving a company, right? It's also employee moving from one role to another. What does it mean to the access and all the privileges that that employee has, right?
Again, when you put that, it's like, how did you not think about that? Like, everybody's got an exit interview, but how good is your exit interview, right? How detailed is it? And I bring this one example that if I say, hey, I saw John uploading 10 gigs of file, right? And that's fine. That's not an event. Let's say, whatever, John works here. But what I don't know is John has already given his resignation. Right? Now, what is the security concept? Now when I put that concept and put that context into place, that 10 gigs of file into Dropbox makes a whole lot of difference when I know that John has already given his resignation. So do I have an exit interview where my HR can put something that raises or reduces or whatever the level of threat from, not threat is a very harsh word to use, but we're security people who use. So it raises or reduces the threat of a person, right, based on their activity that is happening on the network, right? So those are the kind of things. So offboarding, beautiful point, I loved it.
And you already mentioned visibility, so monitoring and alert mechanisms. And make sure that also those are being assigned to responsible people, because there was a case with Target, right?
Yes, Target, where months and months of alerts have been going on saying you've been compromised, data has been taken out. Nobody's looking at it. Why? Because it's not configured properly. It's not monitored properly. There's exhaustion of alerts because they're seeing so many alerts, right? Just went back. What happened? Reputation. Target no longer is there was a Target then, but now there's no Target, right? So this is key. It is very important that you start monitoring and you start paying attention to what you're doing, because it's going to affect your company.
And to the last one, especially if we start using more and more machine learning algorithms or artificial intelligence, whatever you like to call it, we need to make sure that we also review, consistently test them, because we cannot rely only on machines. We're not at that stage yet. And I think we shouldn't ever.
No, artificial intelligence. I was in Black Hat where they basically said that HP created artificial intelligence for planes flying over so they can identify tanks or drones that are flying over so they can identify as tanks, right? But apparently, the day they did the collection of the data and then the whole program was built, when the program was built, the drone flew and it identified all the trees as tanks, right? Because there was cloud. Artificial intelligence, well, this could have been a very different war, right? So, you can, artificial intelligence is good, but please verify. And in the end, it's your data, right?
I mean, with any of these kind of systems, especially machine learning stuff, you need people whose job is to readjust the baseline.
Tweak it a little bit, right?
Always have something there to check up on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to keep teaching the mechanism, the algorithm to learn well, to learn right? So, okay, so
all right, next.
We are more
Step
than
4.
half through.
Everybody doing good? Really? No complaints yet? No questions? Nothing?
Are we going into the boring side or not yet?
This is not my side. This is your side.
Okay. Data is everywhere. And that's true, when I think about software, I have so many examples. And some of most underlooked examples are open source software that we have in a lot of applications. And guess what? The credit bureau That
Equifax.
Equifax.
Yes.
Mm.
Gosh, it's been on my mind for so long.
Wink at me when you want me to talk something.
Then I was like, are you nervous? You have a tick in your eye? Okay, so in fact, Equifax was breached because it had open source with vulnerability that breached the software itself. And they didn't see it for 6 months or so. Right? So why it's important? Obviously, because we have data everywhere.
Yeah, open source. It's very compelling. It's a very compelling business case for any organization. Open source versus, I don't know, $500,000 of XYZ software, right? But you know, who's looking into it? Right? Do you really have the team, the people? Do you really have that to look into their open software?
Yeah. So, a few points here. Either it's vendor software or your software owned in-house, at the end, it's going to be your reputation if something happens, right? So it doesn't matter. Open source, free, paid, or so on, it's going to be organization, reputation, and responsibility. So that's why do not neglect third party and open source and its vulnerabilities. Also, another point that I like to bring up a lot, shift left, and you might heard that a lot. Shift left, what does it mean?
I really have no idea. I usually just, when I hear it, I just... But what does it mean? What
Shift
does it
left.
mean?
So, it also called secure software development lifecycle, to be full. Shift left means if you take a line of the process, right, and we start from the left and we finish on the right. Shift left means bring your security to the left, into design phase.
Okay.
Right?
Good. And see, I'm not the only one. Right? But it is true, you know, start securing your software from development.
From design phase.
From design phase.
design.
Secure by design. Yeah, right? What is
Yeah.
that logo? Secure by design, right? Start it from there, so you don't have to just run regular pen test once it's deployed.
Design.
Your design, your development, everything you can, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that brings us to perform risk assessments and develop your security plan early. During my design phase, I have architecture documents, and we're performing a workshop, for example, to identify our threats. We really think like a hackers. We try to think, what would hacker do? How could they manipulate with the system and our productive system, right?
Right.
What we do and different stages. And it's very important to follow up on that plan, because we can have fun and a week-long workshop or something, and then like, okay, so what happened? I don't know, it's somewhere there
Right.
in a minute. And for sure, include security in your architecture guidelines. So we teach our developers, and developers like, oh, I get the security, I have to. But you know what? If we include in architecture guidelines to have it actually from the very, very beginning of development, it's not going to be so difficult then.
Right.
You already have the ways of do and the recommendations of how to develop the software.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, DevOps is not far away now. You know, you're going to microservices already. People are looking at microservices, containers, nodes, and everything else. Visibility from on-prem is going on to the cloud, right? So when you're pushing on DevOps, you have to start, you know, shift left. It has to start with the secure. Think about it. Again, I'm saying this. The attacks are not on the firewalls. The attacks are not on the infrastructure as such. Attacks are people, right? That is basically. But moreover, attack is on the application, right? Most of the attacks are now written as application attacks. So if you're not going to have secure coding practices, guess what? Doesn't matter what firewall you put in, you are weak, right? So start left, shift left, start left, shift left.
Yeah. So it's a level of security. So defense in depth, we also call that, because we educate people, right? But that's not the only point, right? We have so many points where we can be breached. Then we do our infrastructure, we build up our secure firewalls and everything. But then we have next level is our software, right? How secure software, if first and second fail, do we have a defense in depth on the level number 3? Do we have defense in depth on the lower level, which is perhaps database and so on, right?
Yeah, I agree. Defense in depth is it's like the onion, right? That's the oldest
Yeah.
acronym you have heard is security is like the onion. You got layers and layers and layers, right? Till the other guy just cries.
Verification methods. So we have different, of course, verification methods like static code scans and so on. Open source software scans. I like to mention that as well. But I also have, penetration tests. It's
Yes.
all great. But what about bug bounty and crowdsourcing?
So this is recently that's been happening in our area of security is, we usually you're all with companies that are pen test, right? Now you can take the biggest company, the baddest company. You go to IBM, you go to essentially you go to anyone without trying to name names, but you go to anyone. Somebody's going to assign maybe 2 or 3 engineers depending on the size of the project. They assign engineers to pen test your application, right? Your reports are as good as the knowledge of those 2 or 3 engineers. Now those 2, 3, 4, 5 engineers, if they're good with Ruby on Rails, Python, whatever, you'll get good reports on that. But guess what? If they're not so good with Oracle, what's going to happen? Right? You're not going to get. So today, crowdsourcing and bug bounty has become a big thing because you can get researchers from all over the world, and you basically pay them a bounty if they crack your application. Right? Now you are opening legally. There are a lot of other good companies out there that can help with the legalization of this. It's not like you're sitting there and you're paying ransom, but it's a proper process. And this actually, I think, helps a lot because now you have access to so many people. Yeah.
It's like a way of incentivizing possibly black hat hackers to, it's worth more to tell us about the bug and we will fix it and give you some money as opposed to exploiting the bug.
But it doesn't, I don't want to use the word hackers because then people just like run away from the room, right? Like it was me at one point. If I was an engineer and I was working a full-time job, I wanted to make some money on the side, right? So I would become a bounty hunter, right? And I would, help identify something because it gave me something on the side.
But I think we need to change our perspective about hackers. I like the talk by Karen Lazari, who is actually who started the Cyber Ladies group in Israel. She has this amazing talk in TED, and she was saying about friendly hackers.
Right.
Friendly hackers. So hackers is not a bad person, right? It's what they do is bad, right? You want to say something?
The terminology that I've heard is black hat hackers are the negative, white hats are the ones who...
There's definitely that. There's black, gray, and white, right? But in general,
there's no
people...
And I heard about the ethical hacker. I don't know if it's the same term.
So ethical hackers is like white hackers.
White hats,
those who work for companies and do the good. But in general, I would like to put it a different spin. We can label them, but I don't like labeling people, right? I like to have this kind of opportunity because even if you've done something, you should have a chance to do something better in your life. And that's how we as a companies can also promote this community improvement through these programs, right? We can give opportunity to our community to allow to be a good ethical hackers, right? Not to go to the dark web with your data, but actually have a channel to reach out to you and provide you these details about the issue that they found, security incident. Get money for that, right? And be also credited as a good ethical hacker, friendly hacker, right? So I think it's not only the company's benefits, but our community benefits as well.
Yeah, and a lot of, whenever we try to sell this, the biggest question is, I'm not comfortable. But I'm like, but your application is online anyways, right? So you're not doing any different magic, right? You're already accessible, so hey, whatever. So.
How are you time-wise?
Really? Should I let the guy speak?
Well, 6-ish? Should we get 20 minutes?
Oh, good. So we're reaching to...
Yeah, number 5 steps.
Before we go, security documentation. That's a point I wanted to mention. Not only to document how your software is secure for your end users and internals, but also document your internal processes and evidences for example, like audit and ISO, right? And God forbid somebody starts a lawsuit against the organization, right? You need to have all possible evidences, what's been done, and how you how you processed throughout your development life cycle and addressed all the security issues, because that's going to be important in when the court hearing is going to happen, right? So evidences, documentation, internal, external, it's a good thing to have.
Wonderful. I'm just worried about the step 5. Oh, it's coming. There's one slide I really don't want to talk about. Like, unless you guys are serving alcohol, this is I puts me to sleep. I don't know. It's all you. Go ahead, Ellen.
Is that you?
No, that is me. That is absolutely me.
Well, I don't know. Why do you get that look on your face when you talk about regulations? Is that familiar? Like those letters, set of letters? GDPR, right? Euro-Union General Data Privacy Regulation. PIPEDA, that's Canadian one, right? And we have update on November 1st. Patriot Law, that's US, right? CCSL, anyone knows what that is? China Cyber Security Law.
Nobody believes it. Nobody believes there's a law.
It's a interesting one. If we look at this, they more about like privacy. This is more about information and control.
Yes.
Right? So it's a little bit different spin, but it has a lot of in common.
Well, the beauty spin is all these here. Without again, no offense to any country, but all these countries are saying privacy. We want to secure everybody's privacy, and this one is saying everything that is yours belongs to me. Basically, that is what they're trying to say.
It's the same with Patriot Law.
Sorry?
Patriot Law is the same way.
So Patriot Law.
Well, that is a big confusion. Okay, so I had the same conversation with Helen when I met her. I said, you got to put patriotic law there because I think there's a major confusion on patriotic law. Right? And I have nothing about it, so please feel free to talk.
Yeah, so there are other countries as well who are implementing the different laws. The point is, we have to think about it. So, Patriot Law. My suggestion, get a lawyer. Get a privacy lawyer, so it's number one. The reason, as a security expert, I can talk about implementation of privacy law, right? I can talk about how we handle organization-wise, but when it comes to different laws working with together, and as a business, you do need to have a consultation with the lawyer. What I can say that between PIPEDA and Patriot Law, there is some contradiction, right? And in some cases, it can overlap each other, and Canadian law can override Patriot Law. So the point here is to think, when you're talking about different cross-border regulations and so on, is how you handle your data. So first of all, where your data is residing. It's residing, let's say, in Canada, right? And then you work with some third party, let's say accounting firm, helps you manage your accounting, right? And that accounting firm is based in US. Now, what does it mean for your business, right? What does it mean? You need to, first of all, think about how that company is handling data privacy. Because whatever comes to what, your organization will be responsible for privacy of the data that they are handling, right? They can go bankrupt, maybe, or whatever, but your organization is going to be responsible, held responsible for that. So that's number one. Number two, when it goes to off-border, it means that you have to think about notifying now your users, right, your data. Make sure you provide them also an option how they can opt in, opt out. So what does it mean? It means you might be able to lose some clients, right, because of that, or they will be okay, but you need to specify that if they go, let's say, your data is going to be, their data is going to be in US, they have to understand the Patriot Law now can take their data, and authorities from US can hold the data, and they will own that data because it's on their border.
So you're basically saying that if, based on patriotic law, it really depends on where the data resides.
It is.
So if it is in the US, then the US law applies, or whatever the state law, or whatever they have. But at the same time, you're also, as a Canadian company, responsible for the securing of that data.
Yes. it is, so as long as data is residing in, let's say, US has access to that data
Okay.
by the law.
Yeah, because I find this a lot that people usually confuse with patriotic law. They say our data cannot go to the US.
But if breach happens, right?
Right.
If breach happens, let's say of your data, you will be held responsible because your Canadian data
Absolutely.
is in US and you'll be responsible still for that data.
Right.
Yeah, actually, cross-border data is traveling across the border. It complicates the things, no matter, because you are not only dealing with regulation of your own country, but you are dealing with the regulation of the other country where the data is residing. So that's the reason why there was a long period of time when there were no cloud data centers within Canada, right? And so that's why the cloud adoption within Canada was very slow. The reason being that all the data centers are availability zones according to AWS and other things, they all were in the US, or majority were in the US.
Right.
So AWS, Amazon, they opened in Montreal, and then Azure opened in Barrie, right? So as they bring the data centers in, so it was more easier for Canadian companies to go to. So I think that's what you are trying to say, is that if data is Canadian data is in US, then US authorities have a full access and right to that particular data. It's not that it cannot cross it, but that's where the
Exactly, they can have full access, and that's why I mentioned now, especially after November 1st, if Canadian organization has that sort of a business setup with US, they have to notify their users about that, because without notification, it's going to be considered a breach of using the data cross-border breach.
Right. So now does this, sorry, is there a question?
Just a quick question. That's how it works when data is residing, say in a database or in the cloud storage in the US. What happens if it just passes through servers through the US?
Is this data in transition or data at rest? Right? Does the law apply for
both? I think it is both, because the thing is, you will never pass through your data. Like if you have an application, let's say, you are in the full control of that application where you are storing the data. So rather that database, if that database is in Canada, then Canadian rules will apply, right? So in transition, mean to say that if an American citizen, let's say, or somebody in the US is trying to access your application, right?
Okay.
Then they are using their internet over there, coming over here, right? But that Canadian laws will apply.
My question is, like, let's say going as simple as possible. You're sending an email. The email gets sent through a DNS, but it just so happens that the closest route, even though it's going from a Canadian address to another Canadian address, is through a DNS server that's in the US. So it pings off there and then goes back to Canada. During that transition period, does that mean that the US has full access to all that information?
They have access to that information. There's nothing you can do, and it's always been there.
Okay.
Because 151 Front was a primary hub for the longest time for Toronto and for all internet within Canada. But the one in Montreal still traverses through Chicago.
Okay,
right?
perfect.
So
yeah,
data pairing points,
So
you really can't.
Even when you go, let's say you travel to US, right, and you connect with your phone to the local phone provider, because the cell tower, right, it's already going through US providers. Even that you don't technically save data there on the land.
Email is a wrong example. I would say email. Everybody, your email is out there. The machines are running algorithms to read your emails, right? So email is not secure at all, no matter what you do.
Well, talking about the data transfer, let's say I have two data centers,
Right.
one in Toronto, one in Montreal. If you're sending a file from Toronto center to Montreal, that bypass the network through Chicago and then went to Montreal, then
If we are using if we are using Gmail or something like that, right? So that's the reason why you have your private email servers, right? The companies have their own exchange servers, so that it does not cross that way. It is companies.
It
But
doesn't matter.
unless the
It doesn't
company,
matter. There's any ISP server provider in Canada.
Yeah, unless the
your
company-
American content is
unless the company digs its own channel of
Yeah,
a
unless
wire
you're hardwired.
between Montreal and Toronto,
I love
it
the
has to
discussion, and
follow.
you're saying that it's a boring
back to the
topic.
network, yeah.
We made it interesting, okay? It is still a boring topic.
But the GDPR says that no matter where a European Union citizen is in the world, their data must be protected under the GDPR.
That's different. So that's a different about GDPR alone. And also different about China cybersecurity law, right? So you cannot take data outside of China at all, right? So that's a difference with that law. With GDPR, they, even if a citizen of EU is in US, they still have to be protected under GDPR laws. So moving to the data lifecycle, we handle data, right? And that means that it has a life cycle from when we collect, when we inform and log the changes and so on, right? When we purge data, like erasure is very important. It's not just it sits there forever, but we have to make sure that it's being erased. And hard copies too, right? So
yeah, exactly. And we come back to the same point that you created data, you got to go through the life cycle and make sure that when data is destroyed, it's destroyed completely.
Yeah.
Right.
And the last point, again, we're coming back to people and the training and the processes, right? It's very important that an organization, everybody is aware, based on their role, what is the privacy regulations they have to follow, right? What is the privacy rules? What does it mean for them? What does it mean if they do this or that? They have to understand. So the training that is targeted for specific people and their responsibilities.
Yeah, I agree. And well, I can't think of anything right now. I'm just hungry. Exactly.
Okay. So we went through. Yes. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add to that last slide there. I think there's more to the regulatory regulation than something that one has to do due diligence to adhere to. It forces an organization to think about the design and current practices, how they work with that data. It gets to the point of minimization of collection of data. So in some cases, you've got organizers
It's the purpose
out there, and their purpose is to take all this data, link it together, and what do I got? Something good. The minimization of data, the retention of the data, and we start to get into concepts such as privacy by design. What does that do for the enterprise? If you've consolidated and managed those assets, and you understand what those assets are, and you put the controls and the governance in place, what you've done is you've minimized your risk and exposure to the regulatory penalties, but also you've helped the company to be a little bit more better off in the long run, such as reputational risk. The thought escapes me, but coming back to the breach, let's say that the breach is happening, and when we apply those practices in with our data, and let's say the gate's wide open and somebody is in there looking at it, but if we've reduced the data through our day-to-day business process of minimization, take what we need to do the process, nothing more, nothing less, and we don't need to retain that data, drop it as soon as we can. What we've done is we've created a smaller scope of risk, although it can be quite severe to the organization. When we take something like CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act that's coming, I believe that all that is based on a per consumer breach penalty. So by taking those practices into account, it helps to minimize overall risk.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I like, thank you for that point. So privacy by design, right? Not just security by design, but privacy by design. Because so many marketing, those ads and everything, how much data they collect.
Exactly.
We start seeing all these cookies, but really, you're already there on the website, the cookie already collected. So
even as an organization, if I'm doing design, like privacy by design, like the gentleman said there, and I'm collecting only a certain amount of information, right? It already reduces my exposure right there.
Yeah.
Right.
So legitimate interest is a very good term in GDPR, where they talk about collect only what you need, the minimum you need to collect. Right?
What about organizing for all this in the organization? I've encountered many organizations that are struggling with where do you put risk, where do you put security, where do you put privacy and legal, and how do they work together? And what are the saw-off points?
So prioritization of your
No, I mean, in your organization, when you're trying to grapple all of this,
Yeah.
There's often, competing areas for ownership of risk versus security versus privacy, and of course legal it always has to weigh in. Do you see these as converging now in the new world, or is it a tabletop in itself that's ongoing and interaction and discovery part of organizations now that and focuses on this group of topics for an organization?
So the organization starts right up on the top, right? Like in the end, the CEO, whoever is running the organization, is totally responsible for everything that happens, right? I feel that there is a lot of conversions coming, especially in the financial institutions. We're seeing where fraud is now communicating with security, because we are finding correlations about security events then leading into fraud of cards, because where did they get those debit card numbers from? Why are those debit cards in the cloud, right? So when you're looking at dark web, so we are seeing that that they're working together, that they're looking at each other, which were totally silos, right? The fraud used to run their own SIM, the security team used to run their own SIM, and now they're coming because they see that correlation happening. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that it's all going to come in together. But who's finally responsible, right? That's a good question, because it starts from the CEO, goes down all the way, right? So somebody has to say that risk versus security team. I think all these people, is there one head? I think it's the CIO.
I think that the emergence of the chief data officer and chief analytics officer, this is basically the hottest topic in this area, where in a way you will have a chief data officer that will be responsible for all aspects, and the chief data officer will be talking to legal, will be talking to risk, will be talking to compliance, will be talking to privacy to make sure that all. So this is, in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, it's becoming larger and larger. Even I noticed that OSFI, for example, is now, they have a new position called chief data officer. So I think it's becoming basically almost, if OSFI gets a chief data officer, then all organizations probably pretty much will be. And I think one thing that you mentioned, and I was a bit surprised, was that regulation. I find regulation intriguing, not from somebody who works for an organization. I find regulation quite intriguing because this is how governments protect their citizens. So in a way, if it wasn't for this regulation, we would know everything about everyone. So in my opinion, regulation is as intriguing, as important than every other aspect of data.
Please don't mind me not saying, we have to give some fun behind that picture. So I absolutely totally agree with processes, regulations, and I'm on board on that. But we wanted to make it a fun and interactive thing. So I'm not against regulations.
And if I were to add project and portfolio program management into that, strategically at the top, the portfolio needs to be defined with the top management, the CEO and the board, or whoever your organization is designed, but that has to happen with the program managers, with the support and buy-in from the senior level and the board and the CEO, but also there has to be communication with the program managers, which is the tactical side of things. And then there's a prioritization of all of those aspects that has to be defined strategically in the portfolio, and the programs are defined as such to support the project managers who do the tactical work. That's how I would look at it, but it's broader than that too.
And that's where we, again, coming back to our building security team, right? So it's not just security experts who will work on a code, but security team overall, all departments, data privacy, right? Infrastructure, and all those, there's no one person who will be knowing everything, but at the end, CEO of the company will be held responsible.
You need stakeholders from every single group, because
Yes.
all the opinions
Yeah.
are relevant to this overall
Exactly.
work.
And that's especially how bigger organizations can survive. You cannot survive on one person being responsible. You have to build a culture that people across all teams are responsible for their parts.
So 5 steps to your security gate.
Yes. So.
People, processes, system, defense, software, and regulations. So Wendy, what happened to data at rest?
Oh yeah, we had that in our.
This is my question I had all day long. What does he mean? And by the way, I keep thinking of hospitals. When they're attacked, they're actually, you said they assume we're already breached, right? And a lot of cases, I'll use hospitals for example, they are breached. And they've got people lurking around there all the time for years. And what they've done or what they're going to do, they're not even aware. So when you said that, that's what made me think of that hospital situation where there's people lurking and they don't know what they're doing or what they could do.
Right.
So does that mean?
No, so data at rest is a major topic, and we initially wanted that to be a part, but that can be a whole different ballgame.
Yeah,
right? So when you talk from when you start from data from start to the finish, right, it could.
So we could do that another time.
Yeah.
But it was so great though. All of it was great.
All right, so
Yeah,
thank you very much, Helen.
Before.
Oh, so there's something else. Oh.
Oh gosh, that one rushed it.
Yeah, so just to finish our presentation with a nice quote, that there is no perfect security, yeah, but there are only set variety of insecurities. And less insecurities we have, the more secure we're going to be. Right? So that's it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And one thing to everybody that's logged in on Facebook and LinkedIn, thank you very much for taking your time. And please look on our website. We have membership options there that you can review. And also keep in touch. Send your comments, questions, and ideas to us as we build programs throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick.